Welcome to the Truckers Radio Podcast. We got Doug from Alabama on here. We're going to talk about some old school trucking, a little bit of everything, maybe throw a little bit of politics in there to go with it. So, what do you got going on down there, Doug?
Enjoying retirement.
Oh, man, long time cat there. Finally got to crawl out behind that wheel, buddy. That's hard.
That's 3 million miles.
That's hard to do, buddy. Hard to do. I know I'm hoping to retire one of these days, but right now I got too many toys I like to buy.
Same here.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's definitely, kind of what brought you out of the truck?
Medical got me out of the truck.
Man,
Diabetes.
So
couldn't continue, couldn't get the medical card for interstate. So I'm finding other little things to do and try to keep active. And at 67, still able to get up on my feet every day. But I survived 34 years of commercial driving, 23 of it tractor trailer, 3 million miles tractor trailer.
That's a real common thing with us drivers is medical. These trucks really do a number on us as drivers. We don't even realize a lot of times what it does to us. And the shit that they throw down our throat out here in these truck stops, and they call it comfort food. I call it just kill you slowly. The biscuits and gravy. I mean, all that stuff's good, don't get me wrong, but there's really a very limited options for healthy things, and I've been definitely trying to watch what I eat and trying to live a little longer, and it's just hard to do. It really is. I mean, I'm having to just really eat on the truck a lot, just prep my own food and stop at the grocery store, grab some stuff, which I'm blessed with a really good wife, so she meal preps a lot of stuff when I leave to go out, That
Same
helps a
here.
whole lot.
Yeah, I had to start cooking my own food on the truck just to stay away from the stuff that they call food on the road. Because, you end up getting convenience food, which is not good for your health. And you can only eat like a rabbit for so long.
Right.
It gets tough. So you have to do it yourself. And after 10, 12, 14 hours, you really don't feel like cooking. So meal prep is helpful. And when you do have a good spouse that helps, that means a lot.
Right. Yeah, it does. It definitely does. And that's the thing, they really kind of take advantage of the drivers. And that's something I've been meaning to kind of bring up a little more, is just how much, we're just overcharged. You go into a McDonald's or a Burger King, or, you'll see all the other McDonald's and Burger Kings, they're advertising, hey, they got specials and coupons. Well, they don't accept specials or coupons in truck stops. Wonder why that is.
I don't know, but it's just in the time that I've been off the road, which is less than 2 years. I've seen the inflation at the truck stops, because I have 3 of them right around my house, and all of the major national chains. And it's ridiculous.
Right.
The cost of eating out.
Oh, it is.
It has gone up. It's gone up astronomically, just like fuel has recently. And it's not getting any better.
And it makes it tougher, a lot of your truck stops is going to paid parking. I was just talking to a friend of mine the other night. He'd stopped at this little mom and pop place for years, parked there, never had an issue. He pulled in there. It's like he always does, go to bed. Hour or two later, you got some girl out there beating on the door with an attitude. You need to pay. It's $20 to park. He's like, what do you mean? There's no sign or anything. It doesn't matter. There's just $20 to park. Well, thank God he had a little bit of time, and he wasn't over on his clock. So he just went ahead and left and went somewhere else. And they don't understand the loss of business. You do a couple, 2 or 3 drivers a week like that, for especially a mall and pop truck stop, they won't ever come back. They won't ever stop there again. And it don't take long where you start really seeing a dent. It's just, you got a lot of overhead and a whole lot of less customers.
It does, Stacy, and that was a comment that I saw on TikTok 2 or 3 days ago. Is how do owner operators operate in this economy with continued fuel costs going up, food, maintenance, now parking?
Right.
How do you live?
It's
and
tough.
Even the company drivers can't do it.
It's tough. It's really tough. I've got a few clients that I work with the owner operator consulting, and I go in and try to fine tune their company and get them profitable. You know, I deal a lot with just small one-on-one owner operators, sometimes 2, 3, 4 trucks, 5 trucks. I think the most I deal with right now, I got one dude's got 10 trucks, and he does pretty good. We hooked him up with a good dispatch service, and they're rocking and rolling, but everybody's got to play the same part. You got to have good drivers. You got to have drivers that's not out there tearing your equipment up and that's cooperating, that's going to play the game to win. And it's super important when you're an owner-operator and you've got multiple trucks to have drivers with an owner-operator mindset. You know, and I see so many trucks time and time and time again, you know, they'll pass me on the highway 75 miles an hour. And fuel $5 a gallon, and they're running 75, 80 miles an hour. I'm like, dude, come on, man. Right there's your problem. I guarantee if you talk to him at the next truck stop, he's mad. He ain't making no money. He's about to lose his truck, and he just don't know why. That's exactly.
He can't find that sweet spot in his truck.
Well,
where he's going to get good fuel economy and manage his money better.
You know, it depends on the gear ratio and everything in a truck, 13 speed, 10 speed, whatever it may be, or automatic. You know, you get your little automatic 12 speeds. And you got to take into account your gear ratios and everything. You know, 62 miles an hour is most generally your sweet spot. And in most trucks, especially, you know, you got your different gear ratios and stuff. That has a big deal. I got one guy right now, man, he is just knocking it out of the park. Now, he pulls a step deck, which is even worse because you got that drop, you wind resistance, everything else. And he's got the brake liner with the DD15 in. He is pulling between 9.5 and 10.5 miles a gallon out of that truck right there consistently. And he's making money in this economy, but there's the thing. You can make money, but you got to know how to manage your expenses. And you also got to know how to say no. And that's a huge thing that I've talked about time and time again is negotiate your loads. Don't just let these brokers handle you. You know, and that's a huge thing. I went over it, and I actually, as part of my consulting stuff, is, you know, we go over how to book loads, how to negotiate, because if you don't negotiate that broker's eating your lunch. You ain't got to be rude. You just got to hold your ground, know your worth, know your lanes. That's half the people that jump into a truck out here. They don't know how to be an owner-operator. They're a great truck driver, but there's miles of difference between a great truck driver and an owner-operator. And I'm not trying to insult anybody by saying that. You got to learn to play ball in the big leagues when you jump into an owner position. And that's just the bottom line. There's things you got to know that everyone else in that back office of that big company does for you that you don't see. You have to be that responsible driver. You have to be paying attention to your lanes. You know, I always say, hey, you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And when you're setting into a bad area and you're playing Russian roulette with a broker on a load, you know what? You may play around and sit there all weekend. Or you may be in a good area and a broker's trying to lowball you, and you've got a truck, the load ratio, you've got 10 trucks and 25 loads. Well, you got to know where you stand. You say, no, I need more money. And hold your ground, because you can't hold your ground because there's twice as many loads as there are trucks. You've got the ball in your court. But don't try to do that where you're sitting there and you've got 20 trucks and 10 loads, because you're going to sit there all weekend. And that's what I say about knowing your lanes. You've got to know when to push your luck and when to demand your money and when to just take what you can get and go. Sitting is always a loss. You can move a truck from one point to another as long as you've got enough to cover your equipment and your fuel. Sometimes you just got to get out of there. Sitting there another 2 or 3 days is not going to get you any more money. They're not going to pay you any more Monday as they would Friday. You're not going to get this magical load. But they just say, well, we got Jim Bob sitting over here. We might as well go ahead and give him that $3 a mile. They're not going to do it because they don't give a shit about Jim Bob. They're going to get their freight moved, and they're going to leave you sitting there. And you see a lot of that.
And like what you said before, you can get a great load going from A to B. Mm-hmm. But when you get to B and they don't want to give you the money at B, you move to C, mm-hmm. where you've got tons of loads and you know what you're worth.
Well, I always try to tell people, running a triangle effect. You've got a good load goes to point B, and then you're going to take what you can get to get out of point B because you got paid real good going in. And, and that's the thing. You got to make your money going into a bad area, and that's all in part of knowing your lanes. You've got to know, and see, the lanes change by the season, depending on what you're pulling. If you're pulling a reefer, you're pulling a dry box, you're pulling a step deck, these lanes transition as the year transitions around, spring, summer, fall, winter. Freight dies off in areas and picks up in other areas. So you got to know. I know people out here knows what I'm talking about when they talk about running the produce trail. I used to do a lot of the produce trail, and that freight moves, that produce moves when it's in season all around the country. And you've got a certain season, Florida becomes the highest paying state in the union. And then other times you couldn't buy a damn load out of there. You couldn't pay somebody to get a load to come out of there. And it's just the way it works. But there are 3 to 4 months out of the year, Florida's rock and rolling. But then you got to move on to the next state that's paying. And you got the apples out of Washington so many months out of the year. We used to pull a lot of apples out of Washington. I had that big account up there, man. I tell you what, the old boy, a contact
I remember that.
There, boy, we made some money. And that was when I had that set up with pulling the tobacco, that smokeless tobacco up there. We were getting paid like, I ain't even gonna lie, we were getting paid bank both ways. And pulling them apples out of there, going back into Miami, 3-4 drops, pulling them apples down there, man, we were making some money. I mean, it was just ungodly, the money we were making on that. And we all reminisce about the tobacco money and apple money. And, we talk, so that was some of the best money I ever made in my life as an owner-operator. And like I told all my buddies I pulled in with me there to pull the stuff, I said, boys, we're going to make our money because good things like this don't last forever. We'll milk it for everything, and we just have to go on, when it falls apart. And sure enough, we eventually got underbid on the tobacco, and, that was our connecting thing that made everything go round. So it definitely kind of fell apart. But, I mean, there's money to be made out here, but you got to know the game. You don't go into a casino and sit down at a blackjack table if you don't know how to count. If you don't know how to count to 1 to 10. You got to play. You don't sit down at a poker table if you don't know how to play poker. You got to learn how to play poker and learn how to play it real damn good if you're going to expect to win. And I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, I've made money in the worst economies, and I've made money in the best economies. And you have to run your ship efficient. And that's no bit different between trucking or if you own a convenience store out here. You can't just mismanage your money, and you can't buy things and waste money and expect to be profitable. This is a business just like any other. I guarantee most of them guys right there live in that truck, and that's all they got. They may have a little something else, but either that or they got a wife that makes a lot of money, because you are not going to make money at 75 miles an hour in no damn truck. I've had people argue with me up and down. It's okay, well, show me your settlements. They won't do it. They don't want to talk about it. They want to change the subject. Everybody can claim they're making money, and everybody claims they're making $5 a mile. No. I mean,
what are they taking to the bottom line?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you may get $5 a mile. I ain't saying that can't happen because it does all the time. But if you spend $6 to get it there, what good is it going to do you?
Exactly.
It's just common sense, man. It's just you got to operate a business. It ain't about the glamour and the chrome. You know, I love chrome. I love lights, and I've had them big chicken trucks, and I mean, I've had all them nice ass truck custom ordered. Hell, I mean, it's nowadays it's about making money, aerodynamics, fuel economy. If you got everything paid for, great, buy you one of them big W900s. But unless you're a really good, experienced owner operator, I suggest staying away from that truck to start with because you ain't ready for that truck. I hear people all the time. Heard a guy the other day say, man, I'm going to quit my job. Had a hell of a good job. I ain't going to say where he worked, but he had a hell of a job. I wouldn't be quitting that job to be going to be an owner operator, I can tell you that. And he's going to cash out his 401k and go buy him a W900, pay him a down payment. I said, you going to pay cash pay? Oh, no, I ain't got that much money. He said, I'm going to pay a down payment, get me a W900 stretched out. All the
$300,000 truck.
Yeah, exactly. Even if he paid $100,000 down on it, I mean, you're still looking at $200,000. I mean, you're looking at still damn near $2,500 to $3,000 a month payment, and not to mention the fuel mileage that thing gets. That's what's going to kill you. A truck payment's not going to bankrupt you. The ability to make money with that truck's what's going to bankrupt you. If that truck's got a $3,000 a month payment on it and you can't get more than 5.5, 6 miles a gallon out of it, you in trouble. Or you better be pulling some good shit. And I can tell you that.
And even with the best gear ratios, you're hitting it right on the money at 6.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking $3,000 a month payment and then $3,500 in fuel a month, you better be running 24/7.
Well, the reason I say that is I used to be that guy with that big W900 and that big 86-inch stretch sleeper and all that, man. That was a beautiful truck. The only difference was that I didn't have a truck payment. I paid cash for that truck. And it wasn't new. It was an older truck. But the fuel mileage still stayed the same. Even with the truck being paid for, you still, man, the fuel mileage just ate your lunch. And if you don't have the contacts to get the freight to uphold that truck, to support it, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So many people, they got these big dreams and stuff. And I don't knock anybody for dreaming, by no means. Dream all you want, but be realistic. When you go to look at an investment or something that you're going to endeavor, you're going to jump into, hey, you got to have plan A, plan B, C, and D. If A falls apart, well, you can roll into B. If B falls apart, well, shit, there's always C. And then D is the last resort to crawl your ass back out of the damn mess. If you can make it work, plan A, B, C, and D, chances are, if you're being realistic, you can make it work. Success is all in how honest you are with yourself. You can't be one of these guys, man, I got to be home every weekend. I don't want to work but 8 hours a day. You know, you hear them cats too. I want to do what I want to do. I hear that all the time. Man, I want to be an owner operator. I'm going to go get my own authority so I can do what I want to do. I laugh. That is the most hilarious thing I've ever heard in my life. Because when you get your own authority and you get your own truck, guess what you're going to do? You're going to do what the hell you got to do. You ain't going to have no choice. There ain't going to be no worrying about no dispatcher telling you can't go home because you're going to be looking in that mirror saying, look, dude, you can't take your foot off that gas, Bubba. You're going to go bankrupt. You're going to be running for your life to support that shit. It don't work that way. When you say I want to be an owner operator,
This isn't just a book, it's a lifeline, a voice for the unheard, a fight for the broken. Silence of Humanity is a raw, powerful story born from trauma, recovery, and survival. But it's more than a story. It's a movement. Every single dollar from this book, every penny of profit, goes straight to the Sabren Group LLC to help real people battling mental health struggles, addiction, trauma, and emotional scars they never asked for. We don't define people by their pain. We help them rise beyond it. When you purchase Silence of Humanity, you aren't just reading a book, you're donating hope. You can also donate on our website, sabrengroup.com. Read it, share it, be part of the change. Thank you for all you do. You can make a difference.
I'm going to work twice as hard as I do right now today. So what you think?
You've done it.
Oh, yeah, I've done it for many, many years. And don't get me wrong, man. I mean, I'm still out here plugging along, man. I mean, like I tell people all the time, I don't just come in here and look at this camera and talk to people and act like I know what trucking is. I'm out here every day with everybody else, just like everybody else, and I see what's going on. I don't just sit here and act like I know everything, because I don't. Honestly, all the stuff I talk about, I've been there, done that, screwed that shit up, and learned the school of hard knocks. I've had to learn. I was that guy one time out there in the left lane running 80 miles an hour. But, I started wondering, damn, that load paid pretty good. Why didn't I make any more money than that? And I started figuring that out, like, holy shit, man. I should have made way more money than that. And I started slowing it down and paying attention. And, when I really started paying attention to that is when the economy fell out in 2009. And you couldn't buy a good load, man. You were running on just chicken feed, man. I mean, that was the first time I ever seen companies lay drivers off. In all the 30 years I've drove a truck, that was the only time I ever seen a company lay drivers off like that. I mean, you talk to your UPS drivers, yeah, seasonal, this, that. They'll pull drivers in, they'll lay them off. That happens all the time. That's normal. I'm talking about OTR companies laying drivers off. You don't see that. You've seen trailers parked in drop lots just packed full because they didn't need them. They had them, they didn't need them. They
downsized.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, a lot of companies downsized after that. But then everything kind of come back after that as it came up into the 2012, 13, 14, 15, it kind of teeter-tottered back and forth. But it's done.
It came back too late.
Yeah, it did. It did. And that's the thing. When you run a lean operation and you run your truck like fuel is $5 a gallon every day, well, you've got enough money stacked back to prepare yourself to go through those hard times. But when you live like a rock star and you run out in that left lane at 80 mile an hour just because fuel's cheap this week, well, you ain't preparing for tomorrow. And that's where people screw up. You've got to run a business. You got to build a nest egg. And another thing, I see people that jump into trucks and they'll get into lease trucks. Now, I hear people all day long, oh, you can't make money with a lease truck. Bullshit. I've seen it done. I've done it. You just got to pay attention. And you got to run a truck. I tell people all the time, like, if you're in a good lease, now don't get me wrong, there are some bad leases that's just you're dead in the water before you get started. And I'm not going to start calling out no names. I think most people already know the majority of them. But there are some decent leases out here. Now, some of them nickel dime you a little bit, but you can still make some good money. And
I can name a few.
Oh, yeah. You can still make some good money if it's a fair lease and they want you to succeed, and it ain't all about just them making money and rolling drivers over. If you can't survive in a good lease, why do you want to go jump into the deep end of the pool and go marry a truck? That don't really make any sense, because now you can't get out of it. Now you're going to go bankrupt to get out of it, where if you can't survive in a lease, maybe that's just not for you. Buying a truck don't necessarily mean it's going to make things better. Now, you can go out there and get in a really shitty lease and then go buy a truck. Yeah, that may be better. But if you pick and choose and you find yourself a good lease, a fair lease, and you can't make money out of that, there's a problem.
Well, like you've said before, you got to have what's in between your ears straight. Like you said, there are good truck drivers out there.
Oh, yeah.
But are they good managers of their own business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a huge thing, man. And like I said, I don't knock anybody. But you got to be willing to learn. You got to be able to accept somebody giving you information to better yourself. And you see so many people, no, I know what I'm doing. I don't need you to tell. I actually had a guy tell me one time, look, I know what I'm doing. I don't need you to tell me how to do this. I'm like, okay. Never said another word to him. About 3 months later, he was packing his truck up. He'd done filed bankruptcy, and they were coming to repo it. All right.
And sometimes, there's something that you hadn't mentioned, and you mentioned it to me a couple of years ago, is you have a lot of these leases or dispatch operations. They're good, they're bad. Some of them, major companies that have apps for loads.
Mm-hmm.
Be cautious of those.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't negotiate with an app.
Mm-mm.
Where you can negotiate with a human.
And the thing about it is, now they are companies, and I will say this, like Mercer and Landstar, stuff like that. Now, they have load boards. They have app. You can get on there and look at stuff. Now, that's a little bit different case scenario because they're transparent. You see exactly what the money is in that load. The agent has to post that load for what's on the board, for what he's getting, because if he don't, he's cheating Landstar, and then he's cheating you and Landstar, and that ain't gonna fly. So those boards are really transparent. There's really not much negotiating with that. You can negotiate some of the accessorials a little bit. Sometimes you can negotiate a little heavier on the stops, maybe a little heavier on the fuel surcharge. They can make it a little sweeter, but not much. There's really not a lot of play in those companies. And those are okay. Now, I have to say, I've done very well with Landstar, and I'm not a spokesperson for Landstar, but I've had a good experience with Landstar, and I'd recommend them to anybody. But there again, you're not going to go to Landstar, and they're not hand holders. They're not going to hold your hand. They're going to give you a briefing of what you should already know if you own a truck, and they expect you to do your thing. They don't babysit. I've went months and never heard a word out of them. And they just don't babysit you. They expect you to keep your maintenance up on your truck. They're not going to call and remind you, hey, Bubba, you need to get your oil changed. They ain't going to remind you that. The only thing they're going to remind you is when you need to get that damn annual inspection done. I think they do them every 3 months over there.
Mm-hmm.
Which, hey, it stands to reason. I have no problem with that, man. I always keep my equipment immaculate anyway. I don't want to be pulled over in the scales and paying somebody five times as much for a used tire, or somebody to bring it out, or not to mention if it's anything major. You don't even want to deal with that. In the scale house, man, I'm telling you, man. But, as an owner-operator.
More than once.
Yeah, as an owner-operator, that's a big hit. So you got to pay attention to your equipment. And as an owner-operator, you got to do preventive maintenance. You can't just let something go until it costs you twice as much to fix either. It just goes back to good old common horse sense. And that ain't as common as you think. But it can happen, and people's got to be willing to learn. And that's the biggest thing is you can do whatever you want to do. You're capable of being whatever you want to be. But you got to be willing to learn how to do it. And you get a lot of that hard-headedness. Yeah, they're a great truck driver, and they don't need nobody telling them nothing. And they go out there and they fall flat on their face. And they go back home with their broke pride and blame it on everything else and blame it on the trucking companies and the freight. And you got to be able to survive in any economy. And to do that, I have a pretty good system. But all of my drivers, I mean, I've got guys that I've trained in this system that is doing really good. I mean, they're not living on chicken feed. They're living in $500,000 houses. I had one particular guy, he's done so well, he literally paid cash for his last truck. He did. He paid the first one off, and the second one, when it came time to purchase it, he paid cash right straight up for it, brand new. Owner-operator spec.
Nice.
And you don't see that very often, but he's been disciplined. And no, he don't live in the truck either. He's the same guy who lives in a $500,000 house too. His wife's got a decent job, but it ain't nothing over the top. You got to be smart with your money, and you got to learn how to operate a truck where it's paying you as much as you want to make. I've seen him. He'll negotiate. Brokers, they hate to see him coming. I ain't gonna lie, they hate to see him coming because, boy, he'll wear them out. Yeah, but he makes his money. He knows his worth, and he knows what he brings to the table, and he demands his money. And he knows his lanes. He does really good. He's probably one of my most successful people that I've trained from ground up there and put through the program. So he's done well. But where you living at now? You down in Alabama or you in Mississippi?
Mississippi.
I was thinking that.
Over in Hattiesburg.
I said Alabama to start with on the show, and I thought, man, I forgot. He moved down there to Mississippi. Man, I'll tell you what. They got some good food down there in Mississippi. That
they got some of the best catfish.
They used to be a little.
They got catfish that. Oh,
they got catfish. Man, they was some catfish. They was a little old truck stop. Man, they damn holes in this parking lot. This truck lot probably big enough to get stuck in. And it was down there on 59. And I tell you what, this place right there, it had a little bitty buffet of Cajun food. A Cajun catfish, deep fried, gumbo. Oh, man. I don't remember the name of it. You live down that way, so I'm sure you probably remember it.
I'm thinking it may be further up on 59.
Yeah. It's just a little ma and pa place. Now, you talk about some good food. Oh, my God. Homemade hush puppies. That catfish, man, they were fillets of that catfish that was probably 8, 9 inches long and 2-3 inches thick. Man, it was just unreal. I'll tell you, it's some of the best catfish I ever eaten in my life.
Well, you know, it's not too far from here is where they raise most of the catfish, just across the line. Over there off of US 80.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they have, anywhere from a dozen to 15 trailer loads of catfish coming out of that plant every day.
Yeah.
And they sell to every grocery store from small to large.
No, I'll tell you, man, they
that's good food.
Oh, yeah. I love me some good catfish and gumbo and barbecue. I mean, I tell you, they got a lot going on. Now, I have to say now, Arkansas has got some good barbecue, too. They got some good catfish up in Arkansas. There's a little place they used to stop just west of Little Rock over there. There's a ma and pa place set across the street. But they just had a handful of truck parking set across the street from one of the Loves. I don't remember the exit. But, oh, my God, they had some of the best catfish and barbecue pulled pork. Oh, that's so good.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. And it's that place has been around and around. And they had 2 truck stops over there, ma and pa. You were within walking distance.
Now, this I don't think was a truck stop. It was just a little restaurant that had some truck parking. It was just right west of Little Rock right there. It was still on 40.
Okay, the one I'm thinking of is over there. Before you turn south to go to all the rice mills.
I got you.
And they're down there, I guess 40 miles south is where all the rice mills are, and that's the world's supply of rice.
Right. Gotcha.
And besides that, they have all the good food, and it's a good sit down restaurant. And I mean, they're hard to find because they are closing up, because you have all of the major food chains that are trying to force the mom and pops out, where you get good food to sit down that's healthier than this stuff at the fast food. And again, we got to take care of our bodies, because this stuff's going to poison us.
Yeah, they even started taking a lot of the iron skillets out. I don't even know if there's any iron skillets even in existence anymore. I mean, it's just unreal.
There may be one or two, because there was a big mix-up between Pilot and Flying J, and they got rid of all of their restaurants, and they had Denny's, but then there was one of the restaurants, I think there was one in Alabama that caught fire, for not keeping up, with the grease. And then there was one in Indianapolis, and that one completely burnt down.
Yeah,
and
I
that was
remember
the
that
Denny's.
I remember that. And I was over there in Indianapolis, I think, when that happened.
That was an inferno.
That was a mess. That was.
They got that rebuilt, and then they rebuilt the one that was right up there, exit 104 south of the 59-20 split at Birmingham.
Right. No, that's that newer one. I forget what they call that up there. I can't remember, but I've been in there several times. They got the chrome shop and all that in there.
Yeah.
I had to go in there.
Well, it was just because they have a Home Depot, DC, that's there, and I've delivered there one time, and you can't even get your rig in there, because Schneider controls that one, because they do all the inbound and outbound out of that DC. And on any given day, you're going to see 40 to 50 loads going in and out of there.
Wow. Okay.
And it's just nuts.
Yeah.
But, this is the kind of stuff that we've run into. And all the big companies are controlling the freight now. And even your contracts that you might have with a smaller company, you can't always trust that. A lot of times you have to back up with the brokers.
Right.
And even in the last couple of years that, I was driving, my management, they hated to say it, but even our contracts weren't paying as good as the brokers.
Right.
So a lot of times we wouldn't even take a contract backhaul if we didn't have to. And if we could get a broker to give us more money, okay, we're going to take the broker's money.
Right.
Instead of our contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, a lot of companies, a lot of companies, they'll get the contracts and they always maintain the right to broker that freight out. And they still take care of the company. It may be third party, but a lot of your smaller companies will still have a brokerage. So I did that when I had my trucks and stuff. I had the brokerage where, what contracts we did have, we'd broker out. That worked fairly decent. You get some. The problem with brokering out your contracts is you don't really know what you're getting on the other end. It's better if you can get regular people there that run that stuff a lot and just work with them. You know who they are. And that's the same thing with Landstar. You know, once the agent gets to know you, oh, he'll call you before he ever put that load on the board. You know, back when I used to run out in California all the time, I had a guy out there, man, the agent, man, he was really good to me. Every time he'd see me coming out that way, I had that step deck when I was running out there, and he wanted me to haul them drones. At Atomics Corporation, he'd want me to haul them drones up to the testing grounds. They were several Air Force bases, and I had all the clearances and everything to go into the Air Force bases and military bases, and I'd haul them drones for him. As soon as he'd see me come, you'd never see that load on the board, but he'd call me. And Landstar will tell you, when they come in through orientation, 50% of their loads never hit the board. You build relationships with them agents, and you get the meat and potatoes. You really learn, and you do a good job. A lot of it's based on you. You do a good job, and you raised the eyebrow, this guy, like, man, you did a good job. It got to where a lot of times when I had the step deck, I didn't even have to get on the load board. I had people calling me as soon as they seen where my next delivery was. They'd watch my truck. Mm-hmm. And that's where you really make your money. You can make a good living at Landstar even out the gate, but you gotta build yourself up. You gotta earn your trust. You gotta pay your dues. It's like anywhere else. You're not going to go into any company and get fed the cream of the crop right out the gate. You know, it's just stupid for you to think so. They don't know you, and you don't know them.
You know, when I was with Freezard, that was my last carrier. Mm-hmm. You know, I was with them for 7 years, and they had a rep with many top-notch, and we're talking Fortune 100s. Mm-hmm. And one of them was Dow Chemical. And we did over $7 million worth of business annually with just 100 trucks. And they had to broker stuff out because we had so much on contract. And so if somebody just had a tractor and they were willing to take a load, say over to Georgia, then we could get them a load coming back. They dropped the trailer off. Mm-hmm. And if there was nothing, it was nothing for us to have to broker out a half a dozen loads a week because of the rep that we had with a major plastics corporation.
Right.
And you just cannot believe what rep does. You do it right, you do it well, and you're going to end up having a rep where you're going to make money. And that's what we did.
Yeah, that's for sure. You just got to know how to play the game, you know. Got to know how to play the game.
That's it. You got 6 plants, all with the same company. Mm-hmm. And you know, when you have anywhere from 20 to 25 loads coming out a week out of one plant, and that's just the preloaded trailers, then you have another 30 a week over the other 4 plants. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's good business.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure. And that's definitely, it's way better when you've got good customers and all that stuff. You just got to really roll your sleeves up and build a business around your reputation. It's like my daddy used to tell me, if a man's word ain't any good, he ain't worth a shit either. You know, his word's everything. My dad was a pretty hard man. There's a T-shirt I seen the other day that says, "You can't hurt my feelings. I used to hand my daddy wrenches." And I'm going to tell you, that's the truest statement I ever heard in my life, because I'm going to tell you, my dad was rough, man. He expected you to pay attention, and you had to be a mind reader. I mean, he was hard. He was a hard man. But I wrote a song about him. I haven't released it yet or anything. It's called Learning How to Walk. And I wrote it shortly after he died there right before Christmas last year. And I've got mixed feelings whether I'm going to release it or not. But I've just got a lot of stuff going on, too. Got so many other things going on. And we're in the middle of building a new studio and moving into another place and new house and everything. So we're building a whole new studio. Got a lot of things coming. And I know I ain't been putting a lot of stuff out for the Truckers Radio Podcast, and I don't want people to think we're just going to go away, fly by night, but no means we're not. We got a lot of big things coming up here when we get everything situated and moved into the new studio. Hopefully it'll be a lot nicer setup, better cameras, and it's got a lot going on. But just, one of the things I just want to let people know, we ain't going nowhere. We may be slowing down on the episodes right now, but we just got a lot of arms in the fire trying to take care of everything. Once my dad died, everything kind of changed, and we had to make some different arrangements to take care of my mom, and that's something that we got to do. We're going to take care of Mom and make some arrangements. Needed a little bit bigger house, and kind of excited with that because it gives me a bigger studio.
Mm-hmm.
You know me, I already got thinking a whole lot of other stuff. I can put my music studio and the podcast studio all in together because I do the songwriting too. And I got a new book that I'm working on too that's getting ready to come out here probably toward the end of the year. That's going to be a pretty good surprise. I'll have some more information on that a little bit later on this year. But anyway, you can still check out the one book I got out called Silence of Humanity. It's on Amazon. It's on all the platforms, Barnes & Noble and all that, if you want to jump on there and check it out. I wear a lot of different hats, so.
You have a lot of irons in the fire.
That I do, and then I still run a 70 air clock in a truck every week to go with it. I tell people, everybody wonder, well, how do you do it? I said, well, God gives you the time, and it's up to you what you do with it. I work 6 days sometimes in the truck, and I never rest. I do rest, but this ain't work to me. I just sit here in my office chair and talk. This is just as natural to me. I tell people trucking is something I know as well as breathing. This is just natural to me. This is one of the biggest things. The majority of my life's been trucking and trucking industry. I've been in the trucking industry from one end of this to the other. I've been the dispatcher. I've been the broker. I've been the owner-operator, the company owner. I've been the company driver. I've done pretty much everything. I've pulled tanks, chemicals. I've pulled oversized. There ain't really much I ain't done in this industry, man. And I mean, I've got a pretty well-rounded vocabulary when it comes to trucking. And I try to take that and give back. When that's a big thing, I try to give back to my industry. And this is my industry because this is who I am. And I try to give back and help people all I can. I do have the consulting business for owner-operators and stuff. I don't charge a whole lot for it. But I do have to get paid for my time, just like anything else. But I always leave my email in the comments and stuff. You can drop me an email if you got any questions, anything like that. But, well, buddy, it's been good talking to you. I'll have to drag you back on the show kicking and screaming here one day. But I think we're going to wrap it up here for this episode of the Truckers Radio Podcast.
Sounds wonderful. Look forward to it again, and thanks for today.
All right, Bubba. See you on the flip side.